hotspots, biological hotspots. So we're specifically talking about a few zones around the world where we have areas that are rich in plant species, rich in animal species as well. And they often are in great danger of extinction because of the fact that these are not only places that animals like to live, but they're also in places where people like to live. Also, these places end up being where there happen to be a lot of endemic species that are found there and only there. These hotspots, so I'll zoom in here. So these places that are highlighted in green and blue are the biological hotspots. Now, these only cover about 2% of the entire world. Notice that these are often not out in open waters. This one is here in the Pacific Ocean, but most of them are right next to the shorelines of countries and continents. But about, let's see if we got this one here. Oh, never mind. There we go. It includes about half of all the flowering species and about 40% of all the terrestrial vertebrates. So terrestrial, remember, meaning terra is earth, so land organisms. Vertebrate meaning with a backbone. Now, this is also home to about 1/5 of all the human population in the entire world, which is why they would be mostly threatened. All right, so restoring ecosystems that have been damaged, there's a few things we can do. We can replant. We can reintroduce native species. An example of this is when we reintroduced wolves into Yellowstone, one of those apex predators that was removed from Yellowstone for a very long time, which had a lot of, like a bunch of cascading effects. Removal of invasive species, but one of the things with invasives is that's really, really hard to do. We're trying to do it. We've been trying to do it for a very long time in the Everglades. Removing dams. In one of our last chapters, it talked about how dams hold back a lot of sediment, and it also holds back nutrients. So a lot of times we'll dam up a river, make a big reservoir, but we'll also dam up a lot of things that would come downstream. Dams also have a negative effect in the fact that they never let, or they rarely let, flooding occur. So you may think in human terms that flooding is a really negative thing. But in a riverbank, when a river floods or overflows, it's also traveling very, very fast. And so it brings some sediment and it brings some nutrients over the banks of the river and deposits it in areas near the river we call the banks of the river, and what we call the floodplain of the river. And this periodic flooding helps renew nutrients, helps renew sediments to these areas, brings moisture to these areas. And so we tend to, in natural environments, have an area, wider path of vegetation next to a river than we do in a river that is downstream from a dam where flooding is controlled by humans. All right, ecosystems that damage, also restoring grasslands. Seeding of coral reefs. Corals are actually an animal. They have a symbiotic relationship with algae. Algae is typically what gives them their bright colors. And when we say seeding coral, it's not like we're taking a little seed like from a plant, but basically little tiny corals, and they're kind of gluing them or cementing them into places on rocks in location where corals are either threatened or they've died out in an area, sort of helping with that. That has been shown to be very beneficial. And then also restoring wetlands and stream banks. We as humans love to be next to the river. It's good because, I mean, there's a lot of life next to the river. The soil is really beneficial. It's very nutritious. I mean, not nutritious to eat, but has a lot of nutrients, I should say. And we have drained a lot of the wetlands. Here they drain the swamp because we think of swamps as being a really negative thing. But wetlands have a lot of positive benefits to in our society and in our ecosystems. Now, we can also speed up secondary ecological succession in certain areas through a few ways. Restoration. You make sure you have a definition of restoration. Restoration is restoring or returning a habitat to what it used to be.